So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our keynote speakers for today for this particular time block, who are from Uganda. Their talk is particularly focusing on mapping informal settlements of Kawempe division in Kampala. I'd like to introduce Rehema Nakibuuka from Resilience Mappers and Solomon Kica from Resilience Mappers as well. I would like to also note that Resilience Mappers were the recipients of the HOT Summit grant for last year, and they come to give us a keynote speech today, and I'd like us to welcome them at this point. It is also a recorded session, and after that, we'll have some interactions with them. So let's have Rehema and Solomon give us a keynote at this point.
Hi everyone, welcome to this summit and thank you for joining us. My name is Rehema Nakibuuka and I'm the project manager at Resilience Mappers. Now, Resilience Mappers is an online GIS and mapping community that was created in March 2020. It was aimed at providing map data or spatial data in areas where the aid agencies and the government have intervention or expect to have intervention programs in Uganda. Our community as Resilience Mappers has grown to have over 40 online mappers and over 25 field mappers, and we expect to grow as time goes on. Urbanization or urban growth in many cities worldwide comes with related challenges, and Kampala City in Uganda is not an exception. As far as health and education and sanitation is concerned, it's the citizens that stay in urban poor areas or the informal settlements that are more susceptible to poor conditions and are prone to related hazards. There are a number of informal settlements in Kampala that are devoid to core services or do not have sufficient resources, and this leads to poor living conditions of the people in these areas. Building resilience and sustainability in these areas starts with availing spatial data. Our community, Resilience Mappers, recognizes the need to provide map data in these communities. We thereby engage volunteers and community members themselves in our mapping activities. This is important because we feel they understand their communities better and they get to understand the importance of community mapping and the solutions that come with it. We also use open source tools and softwares to collect, visualize, and present our data to our data users, which then get feedback on how to make usage and improve our map products for usage by them and the public. Well, here's a story of our most recent project, which was one of the actions from the notion of the 2016 World Humanitarian Summit, where local communities like ours apply their knowledge about environment towards risk-informed decisions. Geographic data collection and analysis are fundamentals towards disaster risk reduction, and this is through improved hazard and vulnerability analysis, response planning, situation awareness, operational coordination, as well as prioritization of assistance and recovery efforts. In this project, Resilience Mappers mapped out all the health facilities, education facilities, and waste dump sites in 11 informal settlements of Kawempe. Now, Kawempe is one of the divisions, among others, in Kampala, with over or about 15 informal settlements. This project was also an appendage from a remote mapping activity we had in October 2020. This was when we remotely mapped all the buildings and roads of 15 informal settlements of Kawempe. We shared this data with KCCA, the Kampala Capital City Authority, and Act Together Uganda, one of the organizations that work and deal with the urban poor. And this data was to help these agencies during the relief provision programs in the COVID-19 rapid response to the urban poor. For this, our data users also identified the need to update all the service points in these settlements, and this was aimed at building capability to identify evacuation sites, potential treatment sites, as well as make analysis of affected areas in cases of pandemics. We engaged and trained over 25 community mappers in our field mapping activity. These mappers were part of 6 youth mappers communities from universities across the country, OSM communities or OpenStreetMap communities, and a local working group for girls and women within the informal settlements. Our team was trained in ODK Collect and OSM and for data collection and navigation. We also teamed up our volunteers to ensure extensive ground coverage as well as instill teamwork and learning within the teams. The facilities collected were attributed to GPS locations, operators, emergency services, capacity for which it holds, accessibility to water and toilets, the number of nurses, the number of doctors, the number of students for a school, respectively. We also went ahead and collected the legal or illegal dump sites within the 11 settlements. Now, from this data collected, we developed interactive maps using the Africa Geoportal technology that can now be used for visualizations and analysis. For example, you can see all the attributes of a health center as per data collected. You can also check out the attribution of an education facility depending on the information gathered still. Now, these maps can also be embedded in reports and our websites for reference to the public in case someone is doing a research or referring our data to their sites or reports. Our data users can now use our fully functioning dashboard for statistics and specific searches within the settlements. For example, you can select a settlement, select a facility that you want to see or check out, and then still see the statistics for the different related facilities. We also made and shared static maps with Act Together and local authority leaders within these settlements. Now, also for anyone who cannot use online tools or web maps very often, they can still download these maps that are freely accessible from the portal. During the maps share meetings with the settlement leaders, they identified that they will use our maps to identify potential and evacuation sites within their settlements in cases of pandemics. They will also use these maps to advocate for services and make informed decisions for their settlements or in areas where services are not existent or are not sufficient. They'll also use these maps to clean up illegal dump sites within their settlements or villages, respectively. If community leaders are being able to use spatial data products in such ways, it is an assurance of building resilience and sustainability within urban poor settlements. Thank you again for joining us and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Rehema. Thank you so much for that wonderful keynote. And Solomon is also joining us today for this particular keynote. Welcome, Solomon. Good to have you today. Um, Yeah, wonderful. And just a reminder to everyone that is participating, joining us from the different locations, would like to know where you're joining from. So please, if you haven't done so yet, you can let us know where you're joining from, your name, the organization you work for, or the community you're part of. And then also don't forget to ask any question from the different sessions that we'll have today. And for this keynote, I do have Rehema and Solomon. Great to have you here with us. And good presentation there about the work that you've done, that you've been doing as resilience mappers. I'd like to put it out to you just briefly outside of the presentation you've mentioned. You've just given? Could you tell us a bit about resilience mappers and what is it, a community? Is it an organization? What is resilience mappers and what do you do?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, David. Just Resilience Mappers was formed in 2020, basically during the lockdown when the universities were closed. So as students, we started it up as students from the university. We were 5 students, and because of the COVID-19 lockdown, we were concerned that the government is giving out resources to the people who are living in informal settlements, but then some of the people who are actually staying in these settlements do not receive the resources in time because of the lack of spatial data. So we started a group of 5 students. Were like, let's volunteer and create a community that can collect this kind of data and then share it with NGOs and also government bodies that may require such kind of data. Currently, we have now increased, and now we are over 40 online volunteers. We have a communication group on WhatsApp where, in case we need information, and also in case we need volunteers to act on a certain data collection, we engage them. We also, in this most recent project, we engaged and trained 25 field mappers also to help us in case we have any field activity. And then basically like half of them actually coming from these settlements through engagement with one of the community-based organization from there.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's interesting the work that you've been doing in Kampala, across the division. Curious to hear about how you, first of all, and this is coming to you, Rehema. How did you first get um, involved with the mapping community and OpenStreetMap and contributing to OpenStreetMap? Just to hear that from you.
Yes, thank you, David. Well, by the time we created this group, we weren't new to OpenStreetMap. We had some activities with OpenStreetMap Uganda, had volunteering, had activities with remote mapping. So we had always contributed to OpenStreetMap through OpenStreetMap Uganda, as well as a Geo Youth Mappers chapter, a Youth Mappers chapter at Makerere University. So we had a prior knowledge about remote mapping. That is how we decided that, well, this would be something great for us to do for the country as well. We are also land surveyors and geomatic students, so dealing with spatial data is one of the things we can do, and we can do the analysis as well as the presentations and the visualizations. So it just all added up, and we're like, yes, we can do this, and let's start doing this. Mm.
Amazing, and I think your story is an exciting one. It's an interesting one, but many groups do relate to a story like yours of resilience mappers, groups of students coming up and they start mapping, they start contributing to the solutions that are much needed within their nations and their cities. And big shout out to you, resilience mappers,
Thank
for
you.
what you're doing. I think you're representing a good spectrum of other contributors, the youth mappers, other student groups, which is really great. And that actually is unique for us at HOT. But I would like to hear from you, Solomon. How did you, and this is you personally, but as well as resilience mappers, how were you first introduced to? You've told us about OpenStreetMap. I want to hear about HOT and what has your work with HOT. I know you've received some grants in the past from the humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, so I want to hear about how you got introduced to HOT and how what has that introduction led to subsequently in the last couple of months or even years.
Right. Thank you, David. So the first time that I think we got introduced to HOT personally was through the projects that were being uh, executed by OpenStreetMap Uganda. And then as resilience mappers, The first time during the COVID-19 lockdown, when the very first project that we set out to do, which was the remote mapping of the informal settlements, we had initially planned to do about 50, because in Kampala there are actually over 56 settlements in all the 5 divisions in the country. So we had planned out to do all that, but because of I think by that time we were few, and we had to go through a process of recruiting people and to help us in the whole process, we decided that actually let's narrow down. Then from there we can see actually if we can scale it up to, depending on the success of the first initial project. So that was the very first time that we got involved as resilience mappers with HOT. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Solomon. And you highlighted a number of successes and lots of things that your project, the one you just presented, Rehema, was able to achieve. I have a question from Pete here. Pete is joining us from the UK, and he's giving a shout out to your work, fantastic work. I totally agree with that. And he's saying, great to see the potential impacts listed at the end of your presentation. Okay. Will you be following up to see if the data is used at all, and how the data is used in any ways that maybe the data is used by the the city council or any other users within that region, that division in Kampala. That's coming to you, maybe Rehema. You want to take that?
Yeah, it's okay. Yes, we have a plan on following up how data is going to be used, because from when we finished the work, we had meetings, stakeholder meetings with our data users, and that included the local leaders. So they asked us to share our maps with them, the static maps with them, and one mentioned that, well, sometimes they have authority meetings with the big authority, and, well, sometimes they want to advocate for services in their areas, but don't really have concrete evidence that we don't have these services in our areas. So they mentioned that maybe every time or sometimes when they go for these meetings with the up authority, they need to carry some of these products to show that this is work that has been recently done in our villages, and these were the findings. Yeah, so we also have back-to-back emails and meetings with Act Together. Like I mentioned, one of the organizations that work and deal within these settlements, and them having time to time activities in these areas. They definitely mention that, well, this data is very necessary, and we as resilience mappers are thinking of maybe creating tools like on-time reporter tools for our members, the volunteers in these villages, to keep updating the data, because these areas are dynamic, and it would be nice if we have time to time updates on these settlements for Kawempe, and as well we can create the ones for the other divisions, because as Solomon mentioned, there are over 56 in Kampala. So definitely the other divisions will also need such activities for them, or products for them. I think it will be good.
Yeah, wonderful. And the project you just presented speaks to an issue that is in almost all cities in let's talk about Africa region, for example, and several other locations, solid waste management. And I have some shout outs here from Laura and Edie. Great presentation.
Thank you.
And they have a similar question, which is speaking about, and I think this is coming to you, Solomon. Um, Laura would like to know, who are the users for the dashboards and the web maps that you generated? Is it the general public? Is it the NGOs in that region, or is it simply government? So we would like to hear about the users. And then the other question is related to that, from Edie. Edie is joining us from Tanzania. Is the dashboard that you've showcased during the keynote is looks great. How did you create it? Do you have any documentation around the creation of that dashboard? So those two, the users of the dashboard and the maps, and then the creation of the dashboard. I think this is what we'd like to hear.
All right, thank you, David. So for the dashboards and the web maps, how we created them, we used the Esri Africa Job Portal account because we had created an account, and the good thing with it is that we don't have to buy a license, and it's available for all projects that want to use Esri tools, as long as they're based in Africa. And I think if they're not commercialized, so we exploited that aspect of that account, and then that's what we used. There are already basically some templates for you to use if you want to come up with a dashboard or a web map. Then for the data users, the reason why we created both dashboards, web maps, and then static maps is because we had two sets of data users. We have those ones who can't actually, especially people who are in the local leaders in these settlements. Most of them don't have computers or a smartphone. So they find that they can't use actually the web maps and the dashboard. So basically what they would have to use are the printed maps, then which we provided to them. Then the people who have smartphones especially act together, and also members of the public, because we have got some researchers who wanted actually to know the extent of the boundaries of some of these settlements, who have approached us, and we have given it to them. And also, and basically also the Kampala capital city authority, who could use this data for their interventions. Thank you.
Wonderful. So many questions still coming in, but our time is running very fast, Solomon and Rehema. I want to say we have several questions from Romeo joining us from South Sudan, Janet from Tanzania. Could you share your contact details, I think, in chat, because those questions are looking at possibilities of collaborations and being able to extend training to these other communities. So that would be really helpful in chat. And I want to take this time to thank you so much, Rehema, Nakibuuka, and Solomon Kica from Resilience Mappers in Uganda, for giving us a keynote at this HOT Summit 2021. And at this point, we are going to switch to the other stages, the other sessions. We have a session coming up next within it's OSM South Sudan will be giving us a session now, and so please do join the other session stages and be able to join to that. So at this point, thank you so much. We will end it here.
Thank you, David.
Great.